Hey friends, and welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Swalls, a photographer and educator on a mission to help you find your passion, power, and purpose through entrepreneurship. So let's jump right into today's episode because this girl means business. Hey there, and welcome back to the Girl Means Business podcast. Thank you so much for being here this week and for tuning in for another wonderful, wonderful conversation. I am super excited about our guest this week, and I know you're going to love her. But before I get to that, I want to tell you about a really cool new free training I have available for you. It's all about Instagram Reels. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I am obsessed with creating Reels right now. They have been a huge part of the growth of my business. They've helped me to reach new audiences and to really set myself apart as someone who is an expert in my area. And they're just really fun to make. But I understand that they can be a little intimidating, especially if you are not comfortable or used to being in front of the camera. So I have created the Let's Get Real Instagram Reels training just for you. It is a 40-minute video training that you will get immediate access to when you sign up. And it walks you through the reasons why Reels are so powerful right now, why you should be using them in your business, how to create a reel, edit a reel so that it looks professional while being simple and easy to create, how to find inspiration, how to create a viral reel, tips and tricks for creating really powerful and impactful reels for your audience, and then content ideas so you always have things to create reels around. It is a super awesome training. It is going to give you tons of ideas and inspiration, even if you're already creating reels, but you want to take them up a notch and have a little extra oomph to them. Go check out this training. It is linked down below, or you can go to girlmeansbusiness.com/get-reel. It'll all be right there for you. I cannot wait for you to check it out. And then create a reel and tag me at Girl Means Business so I can see the awesome reels that you are creating out there. All right, let's get to this week's guest. This week I'm chatting with Kelsey Kerslake. She is a business strategist and a business coach. She is helping women to grow businesses that they love and focus on chasing their dreams. And today she's going to be sharing with us all about how to plan for maternity leave or any kind of leave in your business. That is one of the biggest struggles that I know I've personally had in my business, is that feeling of if I step away, everything stops and my business isn't growing anymore. And so it's this constant feeling of I have to always be on the wheel doing all the things. And that's just not sustainable. We need to be able to take breaks. We need to be able to take leave, whether it is, in her case, maternity leave, or it could be vacation with family. It could be, you need to step away to take care of a loved one for a while, or you have a young child that needs your attention, or there's just a phase of life where you can't spend as much time in your business. How to prepare for that, how to plan for that, how to put your business into a position where you're able to step back a little bit and things will continue to run on their own. This may look like hiring a team of people. It could look like putting systems and automations in place. These are all things that we're going to talk about and that Kelsey shares her tips with us today. So I thought this would be a great episode, especially for the summertime when us moms were all looking for more time with our kids, or we're planning family vacations. We've got things, summer camps and fun things we want to do outdoors with our little ones while they're home for the summer. And it's easy to get caught up in the idea of, I've got to get my business, I've got to keep it running, but I also want to have this time. So this is a perfect episode to help you put some things in place in your business so that you feel comfortable taking those summer vacations, taking that time with your family, taking a little bit of a break just to kind of reset and regroup and take care of you. So without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Kelsey. All right, guys, I am here with Kelsey on the Girl Means Business podcast. Hi, Kelsey. Welcome. How are you today?
I am good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I am so excited that you're here, and I'm ready to dive into talking about the idea of sort of taking time away from your business. We're going to talk about maternity leave or just anything that requires you to kind of take a step back for a little while and how you can do that without feeling like your business is coming to a standstill. But before we get into that, I want everybody to learn a little bit more about who you are and what you do. So please introduce yourself and share a little bit of your story with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Kelsey Kerslake, and I actually run two businesses. So one is called Pine Gate Road, which was the business that I started while I was in grad school. It's a personal branding and web design agency. And this is actually the business that supported me in scaling, in leaving corporate. And I have a background in graphic design. So I had my undergrad in graphic design, and then I got my master's at the Savannah College of Art and Design. And that is when I started Pine Gate Road. And I did not think that I would be able to, take it full time right away. So I ended up moving to Cleveland, Ohio, and worked at American Greetings for 3 years while simultaneously running my design studio on the side. And that's really where I got the first taste of leveraging my time by getting team support and really being able to say, okay, what do I want this business to look like and grow into? I know that I can't do this all on my own. And so I did get team support while I was working in corporate, which is like first key of being able to take a maternity leave or a time off. But then I was just so busy with doing a full-time job and running a side business. So I ended up leaving my corporate job on purpose because I was diagnosed with endometriosis. So this is kind of that first time where I was like, oh my gosh, I need to actually have a business that supports me while I take time off to deal with health things. That was really like the first catalyst. And that endometriosis also affecting fertility. I knew that I was going to want to have to start a family, and it was going to be a little bit of a journey. So I think there was all of these things kind of coming together at this time. And it was like, okay, how do I actually get this business supporting this time off, whatever this looks like for family, for maternity leave, for health issues. So I ended up leaving my full-time job in 2016 and scaling my design business. I did have a baby in 2019, so I was able to take my full maternity leave. And in that time, people were wondering, how are you scaling your design business? How are you supporting maternity leave and all of these things? So I actually started a second business, which is called the Align Business. And that is my coaching business. So we support people in reaching sustainable six-figure years in kind of the same way that I did, but very much on your own terms. So being able to support that life that you absolutely want to live, whether that's traveling full-time or maternity leave or whatever, and still being able to hit sustainable six figures year after year after year. So those are my two businesses, and probably more details than you.
No, I love, that's one of my favorite parts of these conversations is like the journey, the story, because I think so many times we see like the end result, not the end result, but like where you are now. And it's easy to kind of skip over like what got you there. And that's so important. And I think we have a lot in common as far as like the multi-passionate, like you have the multi-businesses and, and that's something that I obviously with my photography and then the coaching and things like that. And I know like for me, I was fortunate with both my girls, when I had them, I was teaching at the time. And the first one we kind of tried to plan so that she was born when I would have the whole summer off, because I only got technically 6 weeks. And even that wasn't fully paid. It was whatever days you'd saved up, from your days off. And then with my second one, it just happened to fall like literally at the same time as my other one had been born. Like their birthdays are 3 days apart. And so I was fortunate that I had like that summer off, but a lot of new moms don't have that. I know like other people coming from the corporate world, and you have that experience too of like maternity leave is not always supported the same way that it is or should be. And so that is a benefit of having your own business, is that you get to choose how much time you want to take. On the flip side of that, when you're running your own business, it can be scary to take time away. So I'm curious, sort of, what was your process of getting to the point where you felt comfortable stepping away, taking that break? And well, we'll start there. I have other questions, but let's start with that before I like bombard you with all my thoughts.
Yeah. So I don't know if I ever felt comfortable. Like it kind of feels it's always going to feel scary because it's not your norm. And I think there's always this, okay, like I'm so in my business and I personally am like doing X, Y, and Z in my business. And then what does that look like to actually step back and either, put a pause on your business if that's what you're choosing to do, if you're a solo entrepreneur, and build up the savings, and like, how do you actually get that action plan to get going after a big break? Or how do you hand this off to team and trust that they are going to take care of the business in the way that you would while you're stepping back? So I think it's always scary, but I think going in with a plan of what you generally want it to look like, or to have your kind of security blanket. So when I took my first maternity leave, I was like, I have no idea what being a mom is going to be like. Like, I just literally have no idea. So I am going to plan as if I have every option available to me. So what I did is I said, I want to have my business running, scaling, growing, and supported by team while I step away and take maternity leave. I did not want to take the route where I put my business on pause because I couldn't run it while I was on maternity leave. So early on, I decided this is my path, this is my journey, and I'm going to step into this agency and really get the business running without me. And that was an idea that I had, but the actual doing of that is a bigger leap. And you, especially as a creative, and I'm sure it's like, oh my gosh, I'm like handing off my creative baby to all these people that are supporting this. Like, are they going to be able to facilitate and take care of our clients and do the work in the same way that I would? So that was definitely a big leap, but my goal was to have the business completely self-functioning and being able to grow and scale without me before I went on maternity leave. So I did it. It was interesting, but it happened.
Yeah, I think like when you talk about that, like the whole team thing, like the first thing that I immediately start thinking is like this little bit of anxiety over like exactly what you just said of giving up that control. I think that's something that a lot of women especially have issues with, is that we think, okay, this is our business, it's our baby. It's especially if it's a creative business, because you are the creator, coming from the photography world.
Mm-hmm.
I always think like, okay, well, it's my vision through the lens. It's my editing style. It's my personal touch on it that makes it what it is. And it's hard to think about giving that over to somebody else. So do you have any tips or advice for like kind of pushing past that, or like getting through the idea that like you have to be working in your business all the time in order for it to grow and to still have that personal touch?
Yeah. So there's definitely ways to do it. And I think the first thing is like, how can you mindset wise actually release that control? And because there's so many people, it's like, it's my baby. Like, I'm not even opening the option to like letting somebody else do this for me. So if you do head in this direction, you're like, I'm open to it. It doesn't seem possible, but I'm 1% open to this idea. What you can actually do, my advice would be to start early and actually start training somebody in your styles, in your processes, and everything that you're doing that makes what you do yours. And really make sure that you have time before you're actually taking that time off to make sure that they're really set up for success. So in our business, and most businesses that are scalable, you need things called SOPs. Do you know what SOP? Okay. I didn't know when I started. I worked with a business coach and I was like, SOPs, what are these?
Yeah, I actually did an interview with a girl where she talked a lot about like the idea of no matter where you are in your business, you have these standard operating procedures, the things that you do, and to start writing those down even before you're ever ready to hire somebody, because that way when you do, or if for some reason you need somebody really quick, you already have those procedures like written down or recorded in Loom or however you are saving them.
Exactly. Yeah. That's one of the biggest things that you need as you scale to 6-7 figures, is like how can you repeat the processes in your business over and over again? And that starts with getting really solid SOPs. So even if it is just you, really start writing down, like, what do you do step by step in order to produce the results that you get for your clients? What things do you do that handhold them through the experience? How do you want them to feel? What kind of creative thoughts are you thinking as you go throughout your process, and really downloading your brain into something that somebody else can learn? And I know that this seems like, I don't know if I can do this, but over time, you absolutely can. And really the creative like genius is in you translating that to other people. And like those SOPs are what makes your business. And it's absolutely repeatable by somebody else. It might take some training. It might take some, hand holding them through that. But over time, they will start to learn the nuances that makes your creative work. And so I started with a designer probably about a year before I went on maternity leave. And because I was going through infertility treatments and all of those types of things, I knew that it would be a journey. So I started mine before I knew I was taking that time off officially. But I would have, my SOPs, and I would literally record myself doing my creative process. And I'm like, I like type that does this and it expands. And here's these like little lines. And I would go really, really in detail about why I was choosing certain things, why I was, creating things in the way that I was, and downloading your brain like that and having somebody else translate it. That really creates like your true creative, nuances and what you do that makes do yours.
Yeah, that's so smart, because we have that inner monologue all the time anyway. Like, as you were saying that, I was thinking about like all the times I sit down to edit a photo, and I think I have that inner monologue going on in my head. It just needs to be, like you said, that like that Loom program I love. You just go in, it screen records whatever you're doing, and you can just talk out loud and it's going to capture what you're saying. And when you were talking about that with the text, I think it's important too, like not only to talk about like why you like these things, but why do you choose not to do something else? Like just kind of downloading it out of your head. Just like you said, that's so smart. I love that. And I think too, I wrote down a little note. I was like, these things don't happen overnight. So just like, you knew you were going on a journey with your, trying to get pregnant and all that, the process you were going to go through. Even if you're just like, okay, I know I'm just found out that I'm pregnant. I've got these next 8 or 9 months to get ready, or I know I'm going to take a break at this certain point because we have this life event coming up, whether it's, I'm getting married, I want to take a honeymoon, or we're going to go on vacation as a family. I need these weeks off. You have time to prepare. It's not, most of the time you're not having to do this in a 24-hour period. These don't happen overnight. You have to give yourself time to like put these things into place. And it is a process. It's not something, I just don't want people to think that this is something you did like snap of your fingers and it was done.
Oh no, it took a good year for me to like actually feel like, okay, I'm starting this process I have the entire team in place and I absolutely trust that they're going to take care of things. And one of the biggest things along the way is doing like baby vacations. Like I remember the first weekend that I took off. And I went out of town. I went with a couple friends and, a couple's trip to a lake house, and I didn't bring my computer. And I was like, oh, what is this life? And it was the first time, because like, I feel like I was in that mindset where like, I always had to be on and I had to be like there for my clients. And what if a web issue popped up, and I had to like be there all of the time. I never turned off. And I remember like trusting that my team would be there if like anything came up, and I could actually go take a laptop free weekend away, which was mind boggling to me. And now very much my normal. But back then that was a big first step. And it's like, okay, I took that weekend off. And now what does it look like to take 3 weekdays off? What does it look like to take a week off? I remember that Thanksgiving, I took an entire week off and went to New Orleans for Thanksgiving with our family. And some things went down, and it was a big test of, how can my team handle this while I'm away? And what was also cool is that so many things went wrong during that vacation that we like really tightened up our processes so that they were even more smooth in the future. So I think this is another thing. If people feel like, oh my gosh, my team didn't handle it in this way, or some weird thing happened, like all of those kind of mini failures are great because they actually test your processes, they test your systems, and then you can implement and make sure things are even better for when you take that longer extended vacation.
Oh, that's so smart. I've ever done like trial run. Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to look at it because you don't want to wait until it's the game time. And then you're like, okay, now I'm going to be gone for 8 weeks. Good luck and hope nothing happens.
Totally.
And so we talked about the team. So let's talk a little more about like the team you've put in place. How did you find the team that you knew was going to be a good fit? Who have you hired? Let's kind of get into like the details of that. Because if someone's listening and thinking, okay, I need to start building a team, but where do I begin? Like, what was your process for doing that?
Yeah. So I'll just talk about the agency first, because if you're like handing off your creative genius, you're like, okay, this is where I got to start. The first thing that I really like to look at when building team is, where are you spending the majority of your time? And is this something that is in your creative genius, or is it something that can kind of be more implemented by somebody else? And so I looked at what I was doing and I was like, I'm spending about 40 hours per website just doing development. And so I knew right away to get some time back that I needed to hire out some web development. So I hired a web developer. I trained her. We do show it websites. And so I kind of like trained her in all of my like weirdo ways that I do this stuff. And that immediately saved me like 40 hours per thing. And then the next thing that I hired out, I was like, what is the next thing that is taking up a lot of and here's the thing. Sometimes it takes up energy and sometimes it takes up time. So energy is really, are your thoughts and how are you like spending your brain power, right? A lot of my thoughts were on client details. I was constantly concerned about client schedules and details and making sure that they had what they needed, making sure that everybody had exactly what they needed to move the project forward. And those details caused a lot of anxiety in my life because I didn't want to drop any balls. And I realized the next hire I needed to make was somebody to take care of that. And that was an account and project manager. I think that an account and project manager is something that so many creatives need, especially, but they feel like, oh, it's just an email. It's just a schedule. I'm just sending a contract. But what you're really handing off there is that emotional responsibility.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you have been listening to the Girl Means Business podcast for any amount of time, then you know my love of email marketing runs deep. Not only is it a great way to generate new leads, but it's one of the most effective methods for nurturing warm leads and turning them into sales. Now, over the years, I've tested several email platforms, and my favorite by far is Flowdesk. Not only do they make email marketing simple and easy, even for the technically challenged, but they have everything you need to create stunning emails, capture leads, make sales, and automate the entire process, giving you time back in your busy day. And the cherry on top is you're only charged one flat fee no matter how many subscribers you have. So while other platforms will increase your price when you go over your pricing tier limit, Flowdesk has no price increases or hidden fees. If you're ready to give Flowdesk a try, click the link below in the show notes to save 50% off your first year. Let Flowdesk help you design emails people will love. Click the link below and check it out. I have a feeling you're going to love it just as much as I do.
So the fact that you can have somebody supporting all of those details that is taking care of it, it takes off like so much mental load in your brain. It's not even funny. So I always suggest project managers, account managers, before you think you're ready, because that's going to be really, really helpful. So those were the first two people that I brought on. And then I realized, okay, like, what am I still doing? Like, you have to actually say, like, what am I doing in my business that actually needs to be handed off if I'm going to be taking an extended break? So that's when I said, okay, I actually need to hand off my brand design, my web design, the strategy. And so I hired a brand and web designer who was more of a senior level designer to take on the work that I was specifically doing. So if it's photography, you're actually hiring out somebody who is going and doing the photography, shooting, and potentially the editing and being there and doing that. So that is what I did. And then really the last piece before I went on maternity leave for that first time was how am I showing up and getting new clients if that's not me? So sales and marketing. And I hired a sales team member who was there to take sales calls, to book new clients, to answer questions. And then what I did not hand off the marketing, but that is something I am now doing in the future. But that was a big mistake. I wasn't actually like putting anything out there to like find new people. So that was a lesson learned from first maternity leave.
I love that. I was just thinking like with the team piece, I mean, I always go back to like my, photography background and things like that. And just like you mentioned the client, kind of management aspect. And I keep thinking like, man, if I had somebody to help with that, because that was the part that stressed me out the most. Like, especially like, I think a lot of creatives feel this way is they're like, okay, I've got the creative stuff down. I've got whatever the actual product or service is that you're providing, you've got that. It's all the other stuff that you have to do to build those relationships with your clients and to keep those connections that you're like, oh yeah, I forgot to email this. And then it's like 10:30 at night, you're sitting on an email and that's not super professional. Or even if you schedule it, you always feel like you're kind of behind a little bit. So I love the idea of having somebody that comes in and kind of, even if you're not planning to leave or take an extended break, just having somebody to come in and help you with that would be huge.
Totally.
Okay. So I'm listening to you talk about these different team members, and those are helping you when you're not there. So when you come back from maternity leave or even beforehand, where do you fit back into your business? I think that's another fear that people have, is that they think, okay, so I have all this team in place that's doing all of these things and they're able to run my business when I'm not there. So what place do I have now in my business?
Yeah. So I intentionally set out to like not come back. So in the sense, like I'm still there and doing creative direction, but my actual time in my agency is probably 1 hour a month, if that. It's really, really kind of insane. But I still am like thinking about the future growth. Like what other products do we want to put out? How are we creatively marketing? Like those types of things are the things that I'm now doing as the CEO. Because I did design myself out of the business in a sense. That's when I took my maternity leave, I came back and I was like, I really miss doing business and I love doing this. And that's really when I started scaling the coaching business. So that was something I was kind of doing on the side because people were seeing the growth in the agency and I was doing some coaching. And then I was like, let's really teach how people can build these aligned lives that have businesses that support it. And so that's when I really started scaling my coaching program. And so I think it's just like, it allows you to do whatever you want, which is always my goal. I'm like, I want to have the options. I want to have the freedom, flexibility, financial flexibility to do whatever I feel like. And that is kind of one of my ultimate goals.
Yeah. And I think that's the kind of the sign that you've succeeded in your business is that, so many people, you start a business because you love doing something. And then a lot of people quit because they have to do all the businessy stuff that goes into running a business. They don't enjoy it, or it doesn't fit with their personality, or they're just not good at it. And so if you're able to hand off all those things, and like you said, do the things that you really love in your business, whether that is being an idea person, being the creative person, the one who kind of manages and oversees things. Like if you can take on that role and let other people do all the other things, then you're now growing a scalable business as opposed to you trying to do everything on your own. I love that.
Absolutely. That. I always say, let's try to bus-proof your business. Like if you or anybody, this is kind of morbid, but like if anybody got hit by a bus, like would your business still run? And if the answer is no, then there's some work to do where we can get the business running better, scaling better, any of those things. So again, it looks really unique for every single person, but I do think one of my biggest goals is to help people create those bus-proof businesses where you have that flexibility to do whatever you want. And maybe you do want to go back in and shoot a wedding or design a brand, and you absolutely can. But if life is coming up and you can't, you have that support where the business is still supporting you, it's supporting your team, it is still growing and scaling.
Yeah, I love that. Bus proof your business. That's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so last question, and this kind of goes to the idea of like the creative again. So if somebody is thinking, okay, but I am my business. Like I am like a photographer, a wedding planner. I own a facial, a spa, or whatever. Like they are their business. They feel like that people connect with them. That's why they come to their brand. So how do you, or what is your advice for someone to be able to kind of not necessarily disconnect themselves from their business, because maybe their company name is their name, they've made it a very personal endeavor. How do you, I guess, sort of separate yourself, but still have that personal touch?
Yeah. So I think the personal touch comes in, and this is kind of one of those uncomfortable next level leaps, right? We do have to believe that it is possible to run a successful business that doesn't rely on you. And this is totally something that happens to everybody as they're growing and scaling, because you can't sustainably, personally do everything as you are growing your business. But what you can do is personally design those SOPs and the processes and the ways in which your entire team is like hand-holding your clients and how they're writing their emails, and you get to design that entire experience that is very you. I think that is the true marker of like a next level entrepreneur, when like you can take the things that make you and your personality and like the ways in which you like to interact with your clients, and actually have your team and your entire business process and procedure support those same nuances. So for example, I'm a pretty like bubbly, happy person. And so in our SOPs, we have like how to write a Pine Gate Road email. And it's like, we use GIFs and we use all the explanation points and smiley faces and hearts, and like you sign it XO name. And so where I'm actually designing that, and that's a very Kelsey quote unquote thing to do, but I've designed it in my business so that it's still spreads beyond what I am doing. And so this might sound a little harsh, but I do believe that it's a limiting belief and it's holding you back if you think that you have to be physically doing all of the doing in order for your business to be successful. Because honestly, you're going to reach a capacity where that is not possible. So how can you take the unique things that you are doing as you and then build them into your business in a way that is actually scalable, and your team can take on those same values, those interactions, that feeling? That's the true side of a scalable, growing business.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So good. I've taken so many notes. You've had some really like amazing insights. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. I think this is a really important topic that when somebody starts off with their business, they don't think about necessarily like, okay, well, what if I need to take a break? What if I need to walk away for a little bit? What if something happens to me and I'm not able to run my business? We just get so caught up in this is my business, I have to do it all. So this has been a really great conversation to have, because I think these are things that people need to think about and have in place. And like I said, even if you start with just getting those SOPs and writing them down, recording them, getting them out of your head so that you can then move on to building that team, which I think is so important. So Kelsey, Thank you so much for being here and for all of your advice and your tips. Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can get in touch with you, if you have anything you'd like to share with them.
Yeah. So you can find me at Instagram at Kelsey Kerslake, or the Align Business, or Pine Gate Road, my two other businesses. I'm mostly hanging out at Kelsey Kerslake though. And I share tips, things, workshops, whatever we are up to, you can find it on Instagram. So I'm always there chatting too. So I'd love to meet you.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Yeah. So I'll have all that down in the show notes so people can go and follow you and get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you with questions or to work with you. So Kelsey, thank you so much again for being here, and have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome hanging out with you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. And as always, you can find any links or resources mentioned in today's show down in the show notes. And if we're not friends outside the podcast yet, then what are you waiting for? Come find me on Instagram at Girl Means Business. Send me a DM letting me know what you thought of today's episode or any of the past episodes you've listened to. You can also take a screenshot of today's episode and post it to your stories, tagging at Girl Means Business, and I'll give you a shout out on my page. I love connecting with you and hearing all about your business and can't wait to get to know you more. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will meet you back here next week, same time, same place.